victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me for a preview edition of this show is my good mate, Sixties, also known as Craig. Big fella, necessity is the mother of combination. That is how the saying goes, right? Yeah. Yes, another short week on the NRL and junior reps has led us to a bit of a Frankenstein monster of a podcast as we put the junior reps in with the NRL. No Jersey Flag, no New South Wales Cup. They're both on the bye in round 2. So we have 5 games to preview on the docket this week. And before we do talk the football, as always, a quick check-in on how you're doing, mate, because always good to catch up.
It is always good to catch up, although it feels like only yesterday.
Yeah, almost like
only last night.
Yesterday, yeah. Yes, those short weeks, they come at you fast, don't they?
Mate, here we are. We had the news podcast in the evening live last night. We're here first thing in the morning on a Wednesday before we get stuck into the day. So it's an early morning recording that we're doing here. But basically with everything that's going on at the moment, it's flat out, absolutely flat out in these short weeks, as you said. And you've got some stuff that you have to attend to later in the week. So we're even having to improvise as well with our instant reaction that will come after the morning after the game between the Eels and the Broncos. So just reminding people of that. Also, John, reminding everyone that we have our watch party at Parramatta Leagues Club again for the Eels versus the Broncos this time. All the same details in terms of we've got prizes, we've got TCT giveaways. The club's got, they've been very generous with their prizes, the 2026 jerseys, the signed footballs, the $10 burgers and $10 chicken wings available there in Sturlo's, the $5 beers, the game up on the big screen. Nice, lovely air-conditioned room. We know that's all been taken care of there. So really looking forward to Thursday night. I know there's some people who weren't able to make it last Thursday, and they've been messaging and saying, is it still on this Thursday? Yes, it is. So we look forward to seeing you there. If you were there last week and you're coming back again this week, even better. We love seeing all of our regulars that are there and looking forward to the season ahead in that regard. But, John, again, thank you to Parramatta Leagues Club, not only for tomorrow night, but also for their continued support of the Cumberland Throws. Same to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. And if you're someone that has a business and you love what we do, the way we support Junior Rugby League all the way through to the NRL and NRLW, and you want to get on as a sponsor, just get in touch with us. More than happy to send you out our sponsorship packages, all the details on that, or to have a chat with you. If you want to send it via our social media or via our email, thecumberlandthrow@gmail.com.au. That is our email address, John. Is there an AU at the end of it?
No, it's thecumberlandthrow@gmail.com. Just
at gmail.com. Yeah, no AU at the end of it. No. My apologies for that there. And of course, no matter what platform you're listening to this on, if you could give it a like and subscribe on YouTube, we're very, very close to the magical 1,000 subscribers. But even though we get a couple of thousand people that listen to our podcast every week across all the platforms, it'd be nice if we can get to that 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you can help us out there, that would be great. So, John, without further ado, let's launch into it. Let's go from NRL first, then into the junior reps so we can finish with them.
We will front load the effort, as the coaches like to say, get the NRL on the first call of port on the docket. So that takes us to Thursday night, 8 o'clock p.m. We're heading out to Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. It seems the ground conditions are good. You'd be hoping so. And the weather is expected to be fine, although there has been reports of extreme humidity and some dampness from our members of our live chat last night in the Brisbane catchment. So I have to keep an eye on that one there. But yes, Eels and the Broncos, 15v17 here. Both teams coming off very disappointing round one losses. Eels obviously had the 50 points put on them by the Melbourne Storm, but the Brisbane Broncos, reigning premiers, shut out 26-0, Craig. So both teams looking for a bounce-back result here. It sets the scene for a very odd, very intriguing game. Who can find their gear, who can find their ignition point first? Hopefully it's the blue and gold. But let's go through the two teams before we do talk any more football. For the Brisbane Broncos, they do have the one primary change coming in the spine, but they start with their fullback and superstar Reece Walsh. Josiah Karapani and Dean Mariner are on the wings. Katoni Staggs and Gehamet Shibasaki, the centres. Ezra Mam is the aforementioned change. He comes back into the starting team to replace Ben Hunt. That was a bit of a head-scratcher last week, although I believe that Maguire has still flagged that they could do another swapsies, so I'm not really sure what's happening there, but Mam strikes me as an 80-minute player. I don't really see the value of him coming off the bench, but let's hope they undermine his rhythm again. But Adam Reynolds captains the team at halfback. Corey Jensen and Hakeem or Payne Haas are their starting front rowers. Corey Pakes at dummy half. Jack Kashowski and Jordan Ricky in the back row. Pat Carrigan locks out their scrum. Then on the bench, Ben Hunt, Xavier Willison, Ben Tolte, Albix Tawa, Grant Anderson, Jaden Hunt, and extend the roster: Blake Moser, Deloise Halter, Thomas Duffy, and coach Michael Maguire. Wyatt Raymond with the referee's whistle, the main whistle here, Craig. Ashley Klein in the box. I don't think it really makes a difference who's in the box for us at the moment. I'm not expecting too many favourable bunker calls. But yeah, the Broncos, a formidable team on paper. Very ordinary last week, not too dissimilar from Parramatta. Could not catch a single high ball, it felt like, that game. A lot of easy errors putting the Panthers in great field position. And we saw... I think it is easy to let the sort of late season biases influence some of your thoughts about the Broncos because they were so good at the end. But what we saw last week was what we saw first half of last year for the Brisbane Broncos too, obviously to an extreme extent. But they were very rusty, very out of sync. We saw Reece Walsh not finding his rhythm in this game. And all I'm hoping is that we get a little bit more of it this week because that's a very good team on paper still.
Yeah, you'd like that funk to be hanging around, but similarly, the Broncos and Broncos fans would be feeling fairly confident after what our mighty Eels dished up last week. So let's go through the Eels lineup, John.
Yeah, as we mentioned in the news podcast or the live stream last night, there was at least one enforced change for Jason Rolls, but also one bonus. Some good news for the Parramatta Eels. So that comes very quickly in the form of a backline addition. But at fullback, Isaiah Yongi will match up against Walsh. Bailey Simonson still on that right wing. But the left wing has a new face, a familiar face though. Josh Addo-Carr making a return ahead of schedule to bolster the Eels backline. That pushes Sean Russell back into his preferred position at left centre, opposite of Will Penasini on the right edge. In the halves, Jonah Pezzett and Mitchell Moses will be the 6 and 7. Moses with the C next to his name, of course. The other change enforced by a suspension of J'maine Hopgood, a dubious suspension when you look at all things said and done across the MRC and judiciary, but that forces Jack Williams off the edge and into the front row. He'll partner Junior Barlow. Riley Smith is your dummy half. Jack's movement into the front row opens up a spot in the back row, which brings Kelma Tuolangi into the team. Kelma didn't play last week, but now comes back into the starting rotation. He'll be opposite of Kitiani Katonga. Jack DeBellin locks out the scrum for the Eels. Then you got Dylan Walker, Sam Tuovaiti, who's expecting his first action of the year off the bench. Matt Dury, Talon Silva, Charlie Geimer coming into the six-man rotation now with Joash Papali rounding out Parramatta's named six-man bench. Jordan Samrani, Brian Kelly, Luca Moretti, your extended roster players there, and of course the coach Jason Riles. Eels took I think they only played one game against the Broncos last year, right, Craig? And it was where we had our first watch party, an absolute thriller. Eels holding on to win one of their, I suppose, standout results at the end of the year. And hand the reigning premiers one of the only losses in like the last 2 or 3 months they played, I think it was. I think it was about the last 10 games, only Melbourne and Parramatta topped the Brisbane Broncos. So we always talk about styles making fights, the old boxing adage. And for whatever reason, the Eels, who I think they actually hold a +1 all-time record over the Brisbane Broncos. I think it's something like 37, 36 or 38, 37. No, 20. I was adding 10. 27, 26 in Parramatta's favour since 98. So
it's extraordinary when you think about it. Like if you're talking about since 98 in the NRL era, it's what is it overall, John? Do you know? Like if you include the pre-NRL era, because I know there was some upset results that the Eels got prior to the NRL era as well. So maybe not quite as many, but it certainly did happen.
Take that on notice just now. So, where are you? Make sure I can. They played the Brisbane Firsts. Where is Brisbane? Outright. There we go. So, all time, they've played 69 games, and it is 29-39. So, the
Broncos got that jump on the Eels.
The Broncos benefited from Parramatta's slump in the 90s when they were assembling their super team. That was essentially the Queensland team back then.
Yes.
NRL era, though, Parramatta matching up very favourably, which is really interesting because Eels have had some good teams, some great teams, but also some ordinary teams. So it goes back to styles making fights, I guess. And the way.
And John, I guess it all also comes down to when Brisbane won the premiership last year. They'd been in, was it a 19-year drought of winning the titles?
06, yeah. So
yeah.
I know Parramatta's long-running drought frustrates fans immensely, and a reminder that I've never seen a premiership live in my life for the Eels. But it is also a reminder that at any given time, there has only been, for the most part, 16 teams that could win a premiership. Like one of 16 teams that could win a premiership every year, and sometimes that maths just doesn't work out nicely, doesn't it? And even a team as mighty and as storied as the Brisbane Broncos had a near 20-year drought.
Yeah, it's actually quite remarkable when you think back on that. But just onto this game, first of all, John, how much of a difference does Josh Addo-Carr make in your estimation?
Oh, look, the ripples of his availability are not insignificant because obviously he's your best special swinger. Obviously, Bailey Simonson, good player. Sean Russell, good player. Josh Addo-Carr is your best special swinger. He's a genuine speedster, tackle buster down that sideline too with the combination of speed and explosiveness. He's also your most vocal player in the back line. So there's just a lot of value applied there. And then the other part of it too is that you push Sean Russell back to the position where he looks so good at left centre. And we know Russell can do a job on the wing. He's perfectly capable of being a very solid fill-in winger for you. But centre is the position where he was really broken out. So I think the twofold effect of Josh Addo-Carr's return is very significant. And is it enough to guarantee a victory? Obviously not, because that's not how football's won, with good teams playing each other. And yes, the Eels would still consider themselves a good team, regardless of what they would say is an aberration in round one. But it's a big in. And the fact that he's been able to get through training sessions is very positive too. We talked about it last night, but he's not racing the clock and giving himself the 11th hour to try and force his way into the team and take a huge risk. And maybe, look, I say that maybe he does re-injure his hand. That's just football. But he's gotten through a good workload in the run-up to this game. So it's a big in, Greg. It's a very big in. And you look at the speed of that Melbourne backline. It's a blend of speed and power, isn't it? Walsh, Karapani, and Mariner all can fly. Stags and Shibasaki are very much power centres. So you've got a great matchup between Penasini and Shibasaki. And then Ross has to do a job against Katoni Stags, which is how I believe they match up because Will and Katoni both played right. And Shibasaki will be up against Will as a result. But yeah, very keen to see what the Fox can do to help bolster the back line and just keep morale up too. Just, the talking, the communication, the energy.
John, just watching him join back in at training, and even though he was only missing for a few training sessions with his injury, just hearing his voice out there, constantly barking encouragement or reminders to those inside, it's just constant. his voice is just a constant out there. And, we were concerned about what was happening with the senior players last week, because the messaging very much was, let's complete sets. Like that was the coach's message. And somehow it was not, well, I'm not saying not getting through, but it was a case of,
he might as well have been speaking Latin.
There was something missing in the translation last week. Maybe it could have done with the Fox's loud voice getting through as well about completions. Who knows? It might have just been so contagious that it didn't matter whether you were one of the senior players or one of the less experienced players, that it was one of those games where the more that the longer that the game went on, the more desperate the plays were looking. And let's face it, the possession was low, the completions were low. Every little part of that game last week added up to disaster. It was one of those weeks where, as I think you spoke about in our reaction video, you couldn't talk about green shoots last week. You couldn't talk about them at all. So we can put that behind, but the only true way you can put that behind you is with a much improved performance against the Broncos. Whether you get a win or not is one thing, but what the Eels need to demonstrate is the type of football that they were playing at the end of last year, because that type of football was no fluke. It built up during the season, and then it came in so strongly in that last part of the season that what was it? We won 5 of the last 7 or something like that. And including I think it was the last 3 on the trot, was it not?
4 of the last 5, 3 in a row, and then beyond that, let me have a quick gander at our draw last year, because we beat Newcastle, the Warriors, and the Roosters on the trot. Had that weird loss to South Sydney where we barely lost by 4 points. Then beat the Cowboys, barely lost to Melbourne, beat the Broncos. So yeah, going back, it was a pretty good stretch. That is why we were so maybe not hyped, but on board this year, was that the long run of form to end last year, combined with what we saw in the preseason, including the trials, had legitimate reasons to buy in, which is why the round 1 result was so disappointing. But there is clearly a blueprint, a DNA in the team that if they can just get back to doing their fundamentals at least competently, obviously want to see them do it even better than that, puts them into an incredibly competitive framework. They could have beaten Melbourne, they beat Brisbane, they beat the Roosters, they beat the Warriors. These are all finals teams. This was an Eels team that was not at full fitness. It wasn't at its full form. Lost a number of rising players last year. Katonga to Avadi were out of the frame at that point in the season, which again makes last week what I hope, an aberration. And some might accuse us of clinging recklessly to optimism here, but round 1 spat out a lot of weird results last week, Craig.
John, it would be easy to say, and like lots of people feel this way, and you can understand them feeling this way. Oh, we've been fooled again by preseason hype. It wasn't preseason. It wasn't just preseason hype. It was the run of form in the back half of the season last year that looked to be continuing in the preseason, in the trials, in the way that the Eels played. So there was nothing different in terms of like the hype to what there was at the end of last season. To go into that final game last year and blow the Knights off the park in the way that we did. Yes, it was the Knights and they'd had a horror season, but it was like in that build up to there, we were seeing that surge of form, and the Eels basically turned around a horror loss in the first round and made it an overwhelming victory in the last round of the season. It spoke towards an improved team. The preseason was only the second under Jason Riles and his team of coaches. There was a lot to believe in last week, and as you said, we're looking to see that last week was an aberration. We've seen too many times in the past where the Eels have not just been beaten, but been absolutely flogged. And we don't want a game like that to derail how the team feels about themselves. We want it to be a reality check that they don't get ahead of themselves, but we don't want them to lose confidence in themselves. And it might feel weird to say that at this time of the season, but because you certainly don't win premierships at the start of the year, but I think you can lose your belief. You can maybe fall out of contention, out of early season form. So, as you said, we need this to be an aberration. So, John, you spoke about Josh Addo-Carr. What about Kilmer coming in and actually not coming onto the bench, but actually getting a start? How do you view that?
I think it was one of two logical sequences for Coach Riles to make in the absence of J'maine Hopgood due to that suspension. Otherwise, you would have promoted whether he started, but you would have brought in a Luca Moretti into the mix, and then maybe even started he or Sam Tuivasa, or something in that configuration there. I don't know if we would have wanted to have started Dury. I feel like Matt's best football comes when he gets thrown into the fray off the bench. But that was the other path to replacing Hopgood. I know that Kilmer has a lot of skeptics among fans for the potential lulls in his game and defensive or perceived defensive deficiencies. He finished last year very strongly too. I think that is worth shouting out there that he had a very poor start the last year. In the corresponding Melbourne game last year, it's what saw him play good, couple of months of New South Wales Cup football. He had to earn his way back into the fold. He's had a good preseason, and obviously last year finished very strongly. So I don't mind the route that Jason Riles has found here, Craig. But he's going to have to be. It's funny because like the matchup head to head against the Melbourne edge players, Gashowski and Ricky, they're both decent players and they can get theirs, but you don't feel the imminent threat of either back rower, but you do look at someone like Walsh and his ability to turn the corner and get on the outside of a player like Kilmer, and that's where I think the concern is defensively. So he's going to need to be dialed in there, but he is going to give us some good punch. I think in terms of just pure north-south winning the ad line players, Kilmer and Kithione are our best two back rowers in that regard. Obviously, Jack Williams brings something a little bit different with his footwork and his work. I say work rate. Last week, unfortunately, the ball just didn't find its way to Jack. But that also is what makes Jack such a versatile piece to be able to play in the middle. So yeah, I'm hopeful that Kelman can have a good game. He reunites with Mitchell Moses. Mitch has got a great knack of extracting pointing out of his back rollers when we do actually hold on to the ball. That is the big caveat there, because last week we didn't sub 40% possession and something like 60% completion rate, or maybe even sub 60% completion rate. So yeah, I think Kelman will be hungry. Didn't play last week. A lot like Sam too, by the way, who I think a victim of just circumstance. Obviously the whole HIA sequence of Azara Yongi, and then the argument which I was on the case of guilty, like saying guilty on the other party of the coach getting the short-term interchanges wrong there, and the Eels sort of wearing that burden on the interchange throughout that game. And again, I'm not saying Jason Riles is a terrible coach. It's just that this is the wrinkles in a new system, isn't it, Craig, where you've got the expanded bench and you have to make those, it's not split second, but it's essentially split second in the context of a game, calls that will define your resources that are available. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what Kelman can do, the long and short of it there.
John, with regard to the Eels, we saw maybe the worst performance of the Eels' spine in a long while. Mm-hmm. Without question, Moses was ineffective. Eels fans were calling for the immediate sacking of Pezzett after one game, and bringing in Lorenzo or Joe Ash into the 5/8 position. It was It was probably Riley's worst game in a blue and gold jersey. The standard he sets for himself, it just wasn't him last week. And despite a few flashes, and he was maybe arguably still the best on field, Isaiah Yongi, for the Eels I'm talking about. It still wasn't his best game. So we're expecting the Eels' spine to lift, but they are up against, and you said it before, Reece Walsh. And Reece Walsh, in my mind, actually carried Brisbane in almost the same manner that Jared Hayne inspired the Eels in 2009. People speak about, has there ever been a run of form like Hayne had in 2009? And I would point as the closest thing I've seen was Reece Walsh last season. Without him, they don't make finals football, John. They just don't. And you could say the same thing about Hayne in 2009, but most definitely without him, without Walsh,
and look, Walsh
the Broncos
obviously
aren't in the finals.
Walsh had a much better rounded supporting cast filled with rep stars and breakout players like Shibasaki. But the truth is that Walsh, even though he had the army behind him, he was also an army of one in that team, which is why Brisbane was so good at the back end of the year and why they were able to overcome the Penrith Panthers in the grand final qualifier and then put Melbourne to the sword in the big dance.
Yeah. So to me, he's had a couple of subpar games in both the World Club Championship and that first round. He certainly didn't like the ball up in the air from the Panthers. I don't know. You'd have to expect that the Eels are going to look to see whether the yips might continue for him. He's the sort of confidence player where you go, he might have the memory of a goldfish when it comes to that sort of thing. He might welcome the ball being thrown up in the air as like, oh, more opportunity for me to do something spectacular. That's probably his mindset. But to me, being able to get past the Broncos, if you're looking at just analysing your opposition, it almost starts and ends with Reece Walsh. Despite the stars that are there in that Broncos team, I think if you can shut down Reece Walsh, you're at least 50% of the way towards getting a victory over the Broncos. Now, having said that, the Eels have to take care of their own backyard first, which means completions, better first up contact, better communication in the defence line. The Eels have a defensive system which we saw really functioning well in the back half of the season and in the trials, and the players just weren't able to do the things that they need to do in the system. And key parts of that are getting back quickly in defence, getting set, and then moving up quickly, and therefore not having to make rush decisions themselves about what they're going to do. Because if you're slow getting back, it means the opposition are getting a jump on you because you're not getting off the line, and therefore the decisions that you make are rush decisions because you're having to make them on the back foot with the opposition dictating what's about to happen. So that early, getting back quickly and early gives them that opportunity to come off the line. Now, as soon as you're backpedaling with all that momentum, the possession, what have you, the Eels the defensive system just couldn't stand up to it last week. So really, I think it still keeps coming back to respecting possession, because every time you complete your set, you make it harder for your opponents. You reduce their time with the ball. And what was it, 150 odd extra tackles that the Eels had to make last week? And as you said, John, that's conservatively 20 extra sets when you look at it that way.
Trending towards 25.
Yeah.
If you can't run the ball in the last, as a tackle opportunity. So, and again, it's such a hard bead to get on our fitness levels too, because we look great in the preseason in those trials, but against Melbourne, there was so much fatigue introduced into the first half that even down 18-4, and the game's still there early in the second half when Will Penasini had a chance to score that incredible solo effort, and he just fell short. That we'd made so many more tackles that Harry Grant in particular was able to take advantage of it. And this week you trade out Harry Grant for Reece Walsh as the primary threat, not the only threat. Mam and Reynolds will absolutely take their toll as well if you give them the opportunities. And the Eels can't afford. And again, the emphasis has to be controlling what you can control. And if you're going to get a bad whistle again, you're going to cop some bad calls for whatever reason, so be it. But you need to stop pushing silly passes. You need to get to your kick. You need to get into the arm wrestle. You need to let Mitchell Moses help establish Parramatta into the contest. So that needs to be the priority. And from there...
Well, I think we kicked something like 10 times.
Yeah, it was...
John.
Terrible. It was terrible. And
I think that was something like 7 by Moses, 3 by Pezzett. So if you have a game of football where Mitch Moses is only kicking the ball about 7 times, and I guess especially if you're
either dominating or you got dominated.
Yeah, that's it.
And guess which way the coin fell last week. So that needs to be the priority for the Parramatta Eels. We know they can play some beautiful either ad-lib or semi-ad-lib football too, and that's certainly been encouraged under Jason Rolls to, as I like to say, go in and out of structure, like blend in your set pieces and your called shots alongside promoting the ball with second phase play or playing at the line of the forwards. And that's fine. That's great. But you need to establish yourself first. And the Eels did not do that last week, and they reaped every bit of that they sowed. And now they come against from the runners-up last week to the the actual premiers this week. And maybe it's a better matchup. Eels and Broncos, like we alluded to in the NRL era, it's actually Parramatta favoured by 1 game, albeit. But even in recent history, there's been a lot of positive results. So, but that's going to be predicated on their ability to actually just do some fundamentals, Craig. And that is really what this game comes down to. If they go out there and I don't want to start the season 0-2, but if they go out there and they're beaten by that team of the Broncos, the reigning premiers that have 1 million rep players, including perhaps the best player in the game in Reece Walsh if he's on form, then so be it. Like that is football. At some point there, you have to be acknowledgement that is football. And starting 0-2 would suck. But if they went out there and they played great football and they were just beaten by the better team of the day, so be it. But if they repeat anything like last week, then there's going to be serious conversations about players getting dropped and where we go to from here, because it doesn't get much easier next week either.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree there, John. It's I think in a game like last week, and people were talking about who should be dropped and what have you, and I guess effectively he's relegated Brian Kelly, although it can be argued that that's simply a case of the Fox coming in and someone had to make way for the Fox coming back in. However, when you have a game like last week, the coach could almost validate every one of the 17 players as being below their best and needing to have a long, hard look in the mirror. So as a consequence, the only changes really come from returning players and suspension. It's hard to argue with that. He's virtually given every player a chance at redemption. Yep. And I guess as supporters, we're looking at providing, we're giving our opportunity to the team to earn redemption as well, make us para proud. That's what we ask of them, make us para proud this week. It was hard to feel para proud last week. And no, I don't think anybody was expecting what unfolded. So, John, what is going to unfold this week? Let's get into it. What's going to unfold this week?
Look, Brisbane should be warm favourites here. And I think in terms of the betting line on NRL.com, I think they use Sportsbet, they were very warm favourites. I think it was like we were blown out to nearly $4. I think it's closer than that, especially when you look at the recent head-to-head form here. But there is no doubt that Brisbane deserve to be the favourites here. That doesn't mean I'm going to tip them, both here and them being Brisbane. Doesn't mean I'm going to tip them here or in the official TCT NRL tipping competition. Like I said, it's my burden to bear to tip Parramatta pretty much every week. But we're going to learn a lot about Parramatta this week, and I'd like to think we're going to learn something very positive, that there is some genuine resiliency, some fight, some gumption. So I will back our boys for the win here, acknowledging again that Brisbane are the favourites. So take that for what it's worth. And yeah, I think if we're going to prevail, it's going to be a tight one. Kind of not too dissimilar to what we saw last season when these two teams met. Maybe something in the vicinity of 24-20, 24-18. Maybe I'd like it to be at least a 4 to 6 point win, Craig. I don't think I could stomach another nail biter at the end that comes down to a couple of points. First try scorer, I went Yongi last week, and unfortunately he was involved in the lead up to the Sean Russell try, but it was not the actual try scorer. I will go maybe a back roll this week, maybe Katonga. And then best on field, I'll avoid Mitchell Moses. I think he's one of the obvious candidates for a big bounce back game. I will go another player that needs a big bounce back game in the spine, and Riley Smith.
That's a good shout out, mate. John, I think you'll see a more disciplined Eels this week. Like you, I don't think Riles would want them to tighten the reins too much, because he likes them to back themselves. But I think they have to get those fundamentals right. And I think that'll be a primary focus, is to get to the end of the sets and allow Moses to get those kicks away. Good kick chase, try to apply that pressure in the Broncos' end of the field, and all things being equal and the Eels getting a fair shake from the officiating, that they can dictate the terms against the Broncos. Because if they allow the Broncos to be the ones setting the agenda out there, then we're in trouble. As I said to you, Reece Walsh, he's a match winner on his own. He's got enough mates out there that can do damage themselves, and of course not forgetting Hakeem Haas and what he could be doing. It was a fairly quiet game from him last week. He'll no doubt be fired up this week. But equally, so should our forwards, because what we saw around the ruck last week, and admittedly you're talking about a fatigued set of forwards, wasn't good enough. What we saw on the edges wasn't good enough, because we had Melbourne players that were able to run around. Some of our players in the back, just out on those edges. If we get into a tight scrap, do you know what? I'm going to be happy no matter the outcome if we're in a tight scrap, because that'll mean that we've improved this week. I want to win. I'm going to tip a win, John. I'm going to tip an 8-point win to the Eels, something in the vicinity of 26-18, something like that. You might wonder, why am I tipping Parramatta? Well, I've watched how they've trained this week after last week. There was a lot of hard work that was put in, but there was still positivity that was out there in the group. I believe last week was not a reflection of them as a group. I know the coaches certainly weren't happy with what they saw, because they literally saw nothing of what they worked towards in the preseason. So I'm going to put last week down as an aberration and press ahead, as I said, with tipping an Eels victory. First try scorer, I'm actually going with Mitch Moses to achieve that. Best on field this week, I think it's a good shout out with Riley Smith. I don't think you'd see two performances like that in a row from Riley, and he would be smarting about what happened last week. I'm going to double down and also tip Riley to be best on field this week. So I think we're in consensus there. And I guess the best thing that I can say to round off this NRL section of the preview podcast is to say, don't forget to get down and join us at Paraleagues tomorrow night, Thursday night. It all kicks off at 6:30. You've got to be there, get your raffle tickets, join in the fun trivia quiz that we have, join in and listen to our preview of the match, enjoy the $10 burgers, the chicken wings, the $5 beers. It is just a great night to be able to watch a match with fellow supporters, create a bit of atmosphere in there in the club. Let's bring it home like we did last year with that exciting match, because I can tell you what, that room last year, Sterlo's, it was a crazy place to be after that victory, and we're hoping for a repeat of that this week. So, John, let's now jump into our junior reps preview, because it's most appropriate that we were just talking about Paraleagues, because they are the great supporters of junior rugby league in the Parramatta district, channeling in over $350,000 per annum in support for junior rugby league clubs, grassroots rugby league in the Parramatta district. Without the support of the Parramatta Leagues Club, playing footy would be that much more expensive for families. As it is now, it's really affordable. And then when you had James Hardy jump on board this year with all those boots that were given away, it just makes rugby league the affordable sport for young families in Western Sydney. So anyway, let's get on to it. Let's start with the girls and the on-fire Lisa Fiaola team, who are in action at Redfern Oval this week, isn't it, John?
Yeah, quartet of games out at Redfern Oval. Eels taking on South Sydney, all four junior rep pathways teams. And it's obviously a big day of football out in the centre of the city. And like you said, we start at 10:30 a.m. taking on the Rabbitohs in the Lisa Fiaola. You can catch this one on TCT with the live updates, as well as Bar TV for the stream. And yeah, Eels bringing back a ton of their quote-unquote starters here, Craig. Last couple of weeks have seen some heavy rotation in their extended squad, and Eels still playing fantastic football without losing a stride, but they line up like this with Tegan Nicholas returning at fullback. You got Havana Cook on the left wing, Ruby Enosi Tuipulotu on the right, Georgia Wanzi and Hine Rikiti in the centres, Wanzi down the left, Rikiti down the right. Then you got Riley Cash returning the partner, Tamika Withers in the halves, Kavinya, Callahan Ahio, and Talili Tuavaiti are your starting front rowers. Amani Cook returns to dummy half. Sarah Almadine's back in the back row, and she works opposite of Kaizen Morgan Pritchard. Isabella Bell locking out the scrum. On the bench, Taylor Miga, Zara Corey, Marley Jane Paranihi Tagoai, and Zara Tautai. Sienna Manuo is the 18th player, or the concussion substitute, depending on how you want to badge that role. So yeah, I think this is pretty much maybe some subject to change on the bench, Craig, pending a given week, but this is pretty much close to Parramatta's full strength Lisa Fiaola outfit here. And it's been an absolute credit to all the other players that have stepped up in the last fortnight that this team has not lost a beat despite playing some reasonable opposition. But they now return to their full strength iteration, and they take on the Rabbitohs in this grade, who, let me just pull up the ladder here. In the
one win, I think, is
one
it?
win, Rabbitohs, you're saying?
Yeah, 1 win, 4 losses.
Yes, yeah, there we go. So, geez, it's very polarised ladder this year, isn't it, Craig? Either you're at the top with the Eels, the Bulldogs, the Knights, and then maybe the Panthers and Roosters there, or you got 1 or 0 wins to your name. It's a very weird ladder this year. But yeah, this is past the hump game now, Craig. This is round 6, so these are the stakes are that much higher now as you try and lock in your what will be essentially your final seeding in the next couple of weeks ahead of the finals. And the Eels, they've, again, knocking on wood here. There are some players out that have, like Charlie Noble and Laura Gardner and whatnot, that have been part of that dummy half battery. but they do get back Amani Cook, who I think is their first choice half hooker. So it's an outstanding team, in form, fully fit, essentially. Their biggest stumbling block will be themselves, and again, knocking on wood, they have not even looked remotely close to stumbling over themselves in the first month plus of football.
What they've demonstrated in the last month of football is the depth of the squad.
Mm-hmm.
So we can talk about the strike players coming back in, and yet they haven't skipped a beat with the team changes. And team changes bring with it not just the different individuals, but it's the different combinations. So in theory, you would see a disruption to the cohesion there, but it's been barely noticeable. So you would expect that if we're closer to the team that they are likely to have as their preferred starting team now, that this week should be a strong win against a Rabbitohs team that's sitting down near the bottom of the ladder. We never, in junior football, we never take anything for granted because, for a whole range of factors, besides the fact that when you're talking about in the 17s, the players, whether they're males or females, are really learning a bit more about elite football. They're making that transition from club football to elite level football. So in some senses, anything can happen on a given day. However, the consistency of performance of this Eels Lisa Fiala team just says to you that they'll get the job done. They'll get the job done comfortably. I'll be conservative and say they'll win by 20 plus points. That's been conservative.
Yeah, this is set up for the Eels to win and win handsomely. And given their run of form this year, I would expect them to do exactly that, barring some catastrophic injuries and disruptions, which again, I'm banging on the wood of my table here. They should be considered very warm favourites here.
That is an almighty pack, John. Like the work that they've been getting through this season, and the thing is, they've got the back line that can take advantage of that, because I think the halves have done a very good job at once that forward momentum has been gained through the middle, that they've been able to exploit the edges and the wings.
We've sung praises for Tamika Withers a lot this year. A very highly developed half for the under-17s bracket. I think she's a coach's daughter, Craig, which really, when you watch her, you can see, it's like when you see a Cleary or a player of that ilk. I'm not saying she's going to be the female equivalent of Nathan Cleary, but when you see a player that's got a very strong background from parental coaching, like high-level parental coaching, how more developed they can be. And Withers really has that rounded aspect to her game, extremely good kicking game, which is one of the things that really sets her apart from a lot of her contemporaries in this grade, especially for short kicking. Great vision, good repertoire of different kicks, whether it's the grubber kick that she does really well, or the stab chip kick, or the crossfield kicks. She is an outstanding point of difference for the Parramatta Eels. But yeah, that backline's great. Tig Nicholas is back. She was in tremendous form, Craig, before getting a rest last week. Cook replaces, Taylor Bar played down the right, but the way the shuffle happens, that Ruby Nosi Tuapolotu goes back to the right, and then Cook comes back into the team. And Cook was prolific try scorer down the left edge too. Georgia Wanzi, second-year player, outstanding in the centres. It's just, like you said, the pack is excellent, and then the backs and spine capitalise on that. So they'll go a long way this year, and I think that this is a game they should win handsomely. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so let's now go on to the Tarsha Gale match.
12:15 p.m. kickoff, so a little bonus delay here. Usually that'd be 10:30, 12 o'clock, so they must be trying to budget for some extra time to allow for, just bric-a-brac happenings between games. But yeah, same venue, as we mentioned, it's a quartet of games out at Redfern Oval. Eels last start winners in this grade with a solid win over the Bears. Not perfect, but definitely on the improve. And they now meet the Rabbitohs, who Stone Cold Motherless last because they have a 4-5 losses to their name with no buys to help them. But they don't boast the worst for and against. That belongs to the Manly Seagulls with their 4 losses and 1 bye, but 154 negative versus the Rabbitohs 108 negative points differential. Eels do have some changes this week though, Craig. Again, like their Lisa Fiola counterparts, their younger sisters there, they've been rotating in some of their extended or peripheral players to get them finals eligible, and also just see what's who's who in the zoo, as the old saying goes for ACDC. You got Ire Sevilla returning at fullback. Zion Liga then returns to her wing position there after deputising for Sevilla last week. She'll be opposite of Freedom Crichton Rapati. That's left and right there for Liga and Crichton Rapati respectively. Jada Cook's in the centres, and she's opposite of Swalu Lafonga, so a new centre pairing there for the Eels this week. Sharon Latapu will partner Elias Sufan as they shake up the halves this week. Obviously, that means that Sammy Gunn to Alway gets a rest or is injured. I'm not sure, but Latapu comes in to play 5'8" opposite of Sufan. In the front row, Taylor Falanico and Alana O'Loughlin are your starting bookends. Bally Marchong getting the start this week. Ava Jones dropping back to the bench. Bit of rotation there. Not going to hurt anyone. Both Marchong and Jones are great dummy half prospects. Tia Matthews, who's caught the eye in the last couple of weeks, Craig, gets another chance on the edge this week. She's been great down the left edge, opposite of Fontaine Tafua, who reprises her role on the right. Collier Gray at the lock forward position, one of the stalwarts of this team. I mentioned Ava's on the bench. She leads the way there alongside Katia Duff, Olivia Saba, and Christine Tongia. Jessamine Alawali and Shia Thoklich, the extended bench / reserves there. So interesting bench there. Just thinking Katia Duff, she played in the back line last year, didn't she?
That would be my memory, John.
And Saba is a front row and Tongia is a forward too, I believe. Interesting back line there. Interesting bench selection there.
John, it is interesting because I had Arva down as my best on field.
And I don't think that this week's selection is a reflection of anything negative. I think it's just that you got 2 very talented dummy halves. Bailey's been the interchange dummy half throughout most of the year this season, and she gets a chance to start this week. I mean, I don't think it's any more complicated than that, mate. It's just 2 talented players, one getting a chance to start. And sometimes it is as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, you mentioned as well Tia Matthews, her form. I had her right up there amongst the best on field last week. I thought she was really busy on both sides of the ball last week. A lot of defensive work to shut down dangerous looking work from the Bears. I thought she carried the ball well. I think she's warming into her season. Taylor Falanico just was creating havoc with her carries.
Yeah, absent for the first few games due to injury, has been back for about a fortnight now, and her presence has been felt immediately. Has definitely added a lot of oomph to that forward pack. She's a big, powerful prop forward, and you can see the impetus she's given that forward pack in north-south stakes through the middle.
Yeah, if there was one thing I'd want to see a little bit more of this team, and look, it's fair to say that their attack still hasn't quite clicked. Defensively, they're a really impressive unit and can bring some brutality as well with defence. And I mentioned speaking with Tess McWilliams about it, and she was really happy as a forwards mentor for them bringing the hurt on a weekly basis in defence. But we need that attack to start clicking. I think, for me, a reflection of that is I would have liked to have seen the ball out there in Freedom's hands just a bit more last week. I think it's almost like there's a measure of how the attack's going with how often you get to see Freedom having some big moments in a game. And I know she will sometimes bring that individually by jumping out a dummy half and creating havoc with a run out of the blue or a kick return or something like that. But she's a weapon out wide, and I'd really like to see the ball in her hands a little bit more. But as long as they keep clocking up the wins, they had that first round loss. We've now been into a sequence of victories since then. Just keep warming into that, and the attack will eventually take care of itself. John, how do you see this one going? It's pretty hard to see it going anywhere else except an Eels win, given the form of the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Yeah, they got a good workout last week against the Bears, who proved to be a pretty robust opposition. Would not go away, and while the Eels end up winning fairly comfortably, that was a physical tussle. And I think that that's going to have them positioned pretty nicely this week to go on and do a job. I think that probably the Fiala are probably going to outscore them comparatively, just because of the reflective form levels there. But I think that this is a chance for the Eels to find some offensive rhythm big time and maybe go on and put a bit of a score here. And you don't want to come across as arrogant in these predictions, but it's South Sydney's 0-5 stretch here. It's rough, and the Eels have gotten some players back this week, and you don't undersell the return of someone like Ire Sevilla in the back line alongside just a different half. Look, Emily Gunter is a great player, but maybe Latapu just has a different outlook with Sufan this week that just helps the Eels get in the gear. It's one of those things. I don't know, and I like the pack. So Falaniko, Lachlan, Matthews, Tafunga, and Gray. It's a really strong pack, and it's definitely starting to round into good form.
Okay, so we go from there now to the Harold Matts. Same venue, John.
Yeah, same venue. We move to a 2:00 p.m. kickoff here as the Parramatta Eels meet the South Sydney Rabbitohs in a high-stakes game. This is 3v5. Rabbitohs occupying 3 o'clock. Third on the ladder with 4 wins and 1 loss. Parramatta 3 wins, 1 loss, and a bye. So plenty on the line here in terms of that finals seeding. And the Eels, they've got a couple of wins this week. We start at fullback with Liam Martin, Elijah Azahim on the wing, opposite of William Mia Epe, Leonard Salter, and Lorima Siusiu in the centres. Levi Parrott partners Caleb Leata'awa in the halves. Dion Haynes and Christopher Swalii are in the front row. I believe that Chris is back from an injury stint pre-bye. Flynn Manua at dummy half. Jake Capavilla and Tyson Paletu on the edges. So no Khan Jackson this week. That is a bit of a loss there. He's been great for the Eels on the edge, but a chance for Tyson to stamp his claim for greater playing time in the big picture for the Eels. Hayden Bell locks out the scrum, one of the 2 Bell siblings in our pathways, both of them outstanding lock forwards. Spencer Sorensen, Thomas Jackson, Winston Tahi, and Curtis Brown on the interchange. Extend the roster, Tylen Lama and Nixon O'Connor. So Eels, I'm not sure if they're full strength coming out of the bye, Craig, because of the Khan Jackson situation. And again, we don't get injury reports in the junior rep, so I'm not sure if it's something serious. Maybe he's not injured. Maybe there's just another equipment he's unavailable for this week. Who knows? But Eels, pretty healthy. And they, oh my God. There's a player I'm going to have to talk about very shortly, Craig. I don't know if you've got the team list up in front of you, but there is a South Sydney player that absolutely needs to be shouted out here. But South's a very good team here. And I know when we talk about junior clashes in the past, we've sort of talked about the underrated rivalry of the Eels and the Sharks and how those two clubs have sort of banged it out since 2017, 2018 circa with a lot of great tussles. More recently, South Sydney and the Eels, they're building a bit of like a good rivalry, good healthy rivalry here. Both teams producing some quality Mats and SG ball squads, and that's been reflected in their on-field tussles. So, but I do need to mention in the centres, Craig, Diesel, Gilonta, McCarthy, Brant, Hamilton. That the double barrel, the diesel, the gasoline. Well, obviously diesel isn't gasoline, but the big diesel there. I feel sorry for any commentator as to. I mean, they'll just be saying diesel, big diesel scores, right? Not Gilonta, McCarthy, Brand, Hamilton. So I'm not really sure what the genesis of that surname is. It looks like a couple of generations of shared matrimonial naming, I guess.
John, we used to talk about the big hyphen in Jonte Jr. Beetham Misa,
Yes.
right? But that takes it to a whole new level, that name. Also notice the Dorahy surname at fullback there. So I'm...
And a Hopewadi. We got a Hopewadi at South Sydney.
And a Hopewadi there. Yep. So interesting names. Now, John, I was just having a little bit of a look at the South Sydney results, and it's quite impressive because they dished up the Warriors 28-16, Magpies 16-10, wait for it, the Bulldogs 26-22, and then smashed the Seagulls 30-10. So that's again quite a run of form after losing the first round just by 2 points to the Steelers. So
that feels familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
Parramatta knowing that in recent weeks.
It's a good run. It's a good run of form that they've had there. It's I think it's going to be a good test for the Eels. There's obviously been maybe a little bit of fine tuning with the Eels lineup this week. It's seeing, I guess we've got Larima back to the centre position. We saw them look at him as a fullback one of the weeks. The previous matches, they had the bye last week. I can't remember whether it was the previous week or the week before that, but maybe not as effective there. And it's hard to tell when there was, I think there were a few other changes in the team that week, so the combinations weren't quite the same. He was outstanding in the stints that he had at fullback, I thought, in the trials. But he's back into the centres there. As you said, John, the work of the pack has been outstanding. I think that Hayden Bell's a star, without question. He's almost like, he plays that link role that you see the modern lock play, but it's almost like he almost plays like a halfback, John. There's times in the games it's like he gets into a dominant half position.
Yes, yeah,
and
that evolution of the middle half.
him.
Yeah, so he mixes the ability to ball play and leverage options out wide with the ability to run robustly as well. A great figure in terms of his red zone threat and his general, between the 20s work rate's fantastic too. But yeah, he really is that evolution, that middle, half/lock that we're seeing in the modern game. Bell really, and his sister Isabella is very similar in that regard too. So both very well coached young prospects at lock forward.
John, and I also like the work rate of Jake Capavilla. I think he's had quite a consistent season. Yeah. The couple of interesting selections for mine is Curtis Brown back to the bench for the rotation. He's normally a consistent performer, so it might be just that matter of giving Christopher Suali'i a starting role this week. And I've also liked the work of Spencer Sorensen at dummy half as well. So I think there's a bit of firepower. Winston Tahi, we know what he brings from the bench, and I think Thomas Jackson's been a consistent performer. So it looks like a really strong bench this week as well from the Eels. I'm not going to go outlandish with any points tips. I'm just going to go for the Eels to win this game and look at how the match unfolds without being bold with it. I think if they get a win this week, that's a positive, continued positive step for our Eels.
Yeah, last up losers for the Eels in the mats, but that was because of a bit of a doom spiral against the Steelers before the bye in round 5, and also featured the most unkind bounce I've seen all year for poor Liam Martin on a chip kick where he was in a great position to field it, and it broke at right angles to where he needed it to go, and it fell perfectly for the St. George or the Illawarra chaser to claim the win. So, look, the Eels' form line's not too bad here, Craig. That was their first loss. They've played some good football. Again,
Yeah, they got it. Look, they got away. They got away, I think, from some basics. The biggest concern is always around completions after points for mine, and almost like the SG ball, they could be their own worst enemy. And unfortunately, they left themselves in a vulnerable position. And there was some real defensive lapses that happened, I think, from memory, out on our right edge late in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And we just can't afford that this week. So.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's kind of hard to leverage a differential for this win here. South Sydney, obviously one of the contenders this season. And I think any sort of result positive here is a big one. So what I'm hoping is that with the benefit of the bye, they obviously come out fresh, but with a good game plan, and they can stick to it. Obviously, you want to see your key factors like CU, and you mentioned Bell and Capavilla there, Craig, being some of maybe the focal points in attack. See what someone like Tyson Paletu can do getting the start this week. I think that a win here has them positioned fantastically for the last couple of rounds. And, just hoping that they can get the jump on South Sydney here, because the games against South Sydney in the SG Ball last year was fantastic. Big comeback win for the Eels, and I'm hoping that can help inspire our boys this year to get the chocolates against another contending team.
Yes. Let's. I think we're about to now preview, I think, what's an interesting lineup for the Eels in the SG Ball clash with the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, it is. So we go to the SG Ball, which is another highly seeded match. The second place Rabbitohs hosting the fifth place Eels. Parramatta, one of the, I suppose, Manly ahead of Parramatta because they've got the bye, which is not a full truth in terms of potential latter outcomes when all was said and done. But Rabbitohs one of three fully undefeated teams, proper undefeated, 5 wins, 0 losses, with the Eels, the other undefeated team left in the competition, 3 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses. But we go to this game kickoff time at 3:45 p.m. At Redfern Oval. The Eels making some, got some returning players, got some curious. That's not a new player. It's just a changing of the name there. So we go from fullback, Cameron Bamboy. So he reverts back to fullback this week out of the bye. Riley Davis making way out of the roster to the extended bench, who very unlucky, but a victim of just the glut of talent that the Eels have in the spine this season, Craig. And if he gets another opportunity, I'm sure he will not hurt the squad in any capacity. But that brings Lorima Rokasuka and Cyrus Bloomfield into the picture on the wings. Nathan Howlett returns from his whatever it was, injury or suspension layoff before the bye. He's opposite of Cordell Pritchard in centres. So this is essentially their full-strength lineup, 1-5, Craig. Speaking of returning players, Talon Rosati is back after his injury layoff. He partners Lincoln Fletcher in the halves. So it is a full-strength 1-7 for the Eels. Another returning player. It's always nice to be able to say, and another returning player. Steve Nunn, that is a big in the front row. He's going to be opposite of Ryder Talangi, so the Eels getting their real power combination there in the front, starting front row. Wesley, it's now Tongamoa. I believe that was Wesley Picotti, Craig, but now going by Wesley Tongamoa there. He gets to start this week over Jiro Trey Stewart. The Eels just rotating their 2 dummy halves, at least based on our team was Tuesday. We got Michael Nauer and Chris Petrus on the edges. Billy Fanene, who's been in great form off the bench this year, gets a start at lock forward. No Jackson Coiner. So there seems he didn't finish the game before the bye, Craig. He came off early-ish in the first half and took no further
hand injury.
Yeah, took no further part in that contest, and looks like he's picked up some sort of hand injury. We've seen with the Fox that the turnaround can be pretty quick, and Jackson's got the benefit of being in that age bracket where you have the superhuman healing factor. When you seem to recover from injuries way faster than when you get to the wrong side of the big 3-0. And hopefully that can play in his favour in the coming weeks. And we do wish him a speedy recovery. He's been an outstanding pickup for the Eels. But I mentioned Jiro Trey Stewart, Craig. He's on the interchange with Sterling Farmui, Mason Ong, and Nicholas Kodarak. So Ong also back after some time off. A lot of returns.
Again, that's a strong bench, John.
Yes. And then I mentioned Riley Davis. He's on the extended bench with Kobe Raven. Eels taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs here, the undefeated South Sydney Rabbitohs. I'm just looking at their team there. Anyone I recognise? Taj Alvarez is a player that's been earmarked for high honours, Craig, in the halves. I know that he's got a big rap on him. And he was, when these two teams met last year, I think he was one of the best players on the field in that particular contest. Was that in the Harold Matts last year, though, Taj? I'm just trying to think. I think it was a 16-10 loss for the Parramatta Eels last year, but we were undefeated in the SG Ball in the regular season. Let's see how good my memory is, Craig. I go to 2025 Parramatta Eels. They played South Sydney. Did they play South Sydney? Am I telling you fibs? Where did they play? Oh, he was playing for the Central Coast Roosters, wasn't he? Is that where I remember this? In the SG, in the Central Coast Roosters. We won 10-6. Oh, was that Carter Mareko I'm thinking of now? I'm getting Carter Mareko confused with Taj Alvarez. They're both highly rated half prospects, which is why. So, yeah, there you go. Forget my dribble there, mate. It's a different player.
Mm-mm. John, it was almost a carbon copy, the SG Ball of the Harold Matts, the last round that these teams played, given that last week was a bye. And again, it was a shocking bounce from a kick ahead that led to the Steelers, in this instance, getting the draw out of the game, whereas that last tackle, kick and chase, got a victory in the Harold Matts. And it was still much the same. There just wasn't respect for, I don't think there was respect for possession from the SG Ball team last week. There were times where there were line breaks made and there was just a pass thrown which didn't need to be thrown. We've spoken about them being their own worst enemies. It was really that case last week, because the Steelers, as plucky as they were, sit right down towards the bottom of the ladder. And the Eels missed out on picking up a point there against them. They probably should have had the match well in control, and full credit to the Steelers because they hung in there. But that was a long way from the best of this Eels SG Ball team. A long, long way. And really disappointing that it occurred up at the home ground at Kellyville as well. So I really need this team to be focused and get back on track. And although they're still listed as undefeated, I think the South Sydney team's a lot better than that Illawarra team with respect to Illawarra. And they're going to need to turn up and play for the full 70 minutes this week, John.
Yeah, there's no
just
doubt.
Respect the football.
No doubt about it, isn't
Respect possession.
Yeah.
Patience.
And just if your opposition do rise up and cause a bit of instability in your game plan, I need a bit of wherewithal just to get back into the grind. And that's what we didn't see from both the Mats and the Ball last time they took the field before the bye. They got frazzled, and both Steelers outfits were able to seize on the swing of momentum to win in the Mats and then salvage a draw in the SG Ball. And in saying that, the Eels still had a chance to win, by the way. Just their execution of the field goal drill was not clinical. And that even then had a chance to win when Rabbitohs got the deflection and he thought he'd scored. So there is an alternate universe where the Eels had still salvaged a win against the Steelers, and it makes this matchup even more hyped up. But yeah, this is a huge litmus test to the Eels, and you love that. I think this is the right time of the year to start getting these kind of tests, Craig. You can you don't throw away your first month of form in the junior reps, but you whatever results you salvage in the first month, you take them as they are. If you get the wins, you get the wins. They're important. And now it's when you start seeing who's who. Again, I'm not going to go back to the same line, but you sort of see how it shakes out for who's a real contender and who isn't. And this is Parramatta's first real look at another contending team. And despite the last start draw, there's every reason to believe that this Eels team can still get the job done. And that's with full respect to South Sydney, who obviously have an outstanding team of their own. But I remain committed to the belief that the Eels are the single most important impediment to the Parramatta Eels. You know, it's Parramatta against Parramatta. And that's not to say they can't be beaten. This South Sydney team's going to give them a hell of a run for their money. But if the Eels go out there and play anywhere near the best of their abilities, it would take an otherworldly effort from any opposition team this year to beat them, is how I feel about this squad. And
John, this is one of those games similar to the Harold Matts where I'm not going to get bold with any scoreline predictions or anything like that. I will be happy for the Eels to secure a victory against a highly ranked team.
100%. I don't care about points differential at this point of the season. I think wins are just more important in general in the junior reps, just because of the abbreviated nature of the competition. And while, it may cost you a positional ladder at the end of the day with points differential, just wins get you where you need to be. And so...
Yep. Okay, John, so now we're at that point where I believe you've got a bit of breaking news.
Yeah, usually we're the ones missing out on breaking news, and there is nothing final about this, but there has been an update to the Mitchell Barnett situation, Craig. Big article from the... is this the Daily Telegraph? The formatting looks like Daily Telegraph. Headlining that the Eels have tabled a $2.6 million deal for Mitch Barnett in a last-ditch bid to ambush the Broncos in the battle for the New South Wales Origin Enforcer. I got to tell you, Craig, I hate the terminology of this masthead. It is such a wank, but they all use it these days. This masthead can reveal Parramatta have tabled a beefed-up 3-year deal for Barnett, while the Warriors are exploring 4 potential recruits to complete a transfer deal for the departing prop. And to clarify, the 4 players that are in the mix for the transfer, which means the 4 clubs that are vying for Barnett's services, you've got Antonio Verhoeven from Brisbane, outside back, who has New Zealand heritage, which makes sense there for him to go there. So Brisbane, obviously, we know that they're the front runners in this battle here. Tyrell Sloan, I'm not sure why the Dragons are in on Mitch Barnett, but apparently they're offering Tyrell Sloan. Jason Saab from Manly, Craig. So Manly looking to free up some cap space to help get Barnett there, I dare say, given that Sloan's not on Saab's on a small deal. And then the Eels, I don't know how I feel about this, Craig, given our sparse backline depth right now, but apparently Jordan Samrani is up on the table as a player swap for Barnett to get him for this year. So that then makes me wonder if the 3-year extension is 2026 inclusive. I'm not, again, that the way the article is tabulated doesn't really clarify that it would be, if the offer is this year inclusive, that 3-year extent. Is it a 3-year extension or is it a 3-year offer 2026 inclusive? So 2 years beyond this year. I got to say, I've had my reservations about Barnett at that sort of price, and the Eels feel like he's their guy at nearly 850 a season or a bit over 850 a season, depending on it's 860ish, right? Roughly a season there. So if he's that guy, I understand wanting to commit and pull the trigger, but age and injury history not great here. So there is certainly a degree of risk involved that maybe goes beyond the normal risk management levels. But Parramatta are going all in here. They're trying to trump the Brisbane Broncos, the Manly Seagulls, and the St. George Illawarra Dragons.
The only thing I'll say, John, is Eels supporters have wanted the club to really flex their muscle in contract negotiations, and the only way you really flex that is by dollars. And whether it be upfront in salary cap or whether there's third-party deals, the big clubs seem to get these sorts of marquee players signed. He's an Origin player. Does that make him a marquee player? I guess from that perspective, yes. Like you, John, I have my concerns from an injury history perspective, but look, I'll sit back and see how it goes. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure.
He's obviously a great player. Like that needs, with all the doubt and sort of borderline pessimism that we're putting on show here. There is no doubt that Barnett, he is a genuine Origin tier player. He's a hard-nosed, hard-working middle forward. Not a high-impact guy in terms of explosives, but he still gives you a lot of impact as a middle forward. He's a great player. Just he's not young, and he's got coming off the ACL injury. And ACLs aren't the, oh my God, he's not going to be the same player he once was sort of injury anymore. That belongs to more like Achilles and patella tendon injuries these days. And even then, there's been medical strides on both fronts to make players come back to close to the 100%. But yeah, it is that unsettling combination of age and injury. But you are what the market says you are. And if the Brisbane Broncos are right up there at 800 plus, if Manly and St. George are right up there at 800 plus, and again, I do not know how St. George are in on him after spending well in excess of 7 figures on Keon Koloamatangi, but credit to them for finding the cap space. The market says what you are, and right now Mitch Barnett, he is hot property.
Yep. So we watch this space now. John, wow, that's one big preview episode that we've just put behind us. So again, a reminder, we'll see you at Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, for our watch party against the Broncos Thursday night, kicking off at 6:30. The game's on the big screen at 8, but of course between 6:30 and 8, you've got all the pre-game prizes, quizzes, previews, food, all that sort of stuff. So hopefully we see you there. And thank you, of course, to anyone that's watching, listening to this. It is recorded, so we know it's all on delay. It's not live, but we appreciate you joining us. Thank you to our sponsors, Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, and Star Partners Real Estate, the OG of our sponsors. That's Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta. Again, if you're interested in getting behind the Cumberland Throw and our support at all levels of the mighty Parramatta Eels, just get in touch with us, the Cumberland Throw at gmail.com. We'd be more than happy to send you our sponsorship details. John, thank you. As always say, go you mighty Eels, para proud.